Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. So I think many of the images that you will see have been taken while I keep traveling across railways here and there. So on many forums or many places, a lot of people when you meet, they generally say that in India, the things don't move so fast. The developments are so slow. You announced a project and then it's been taking years to do it. And that's not what actually in India it happened. It's like this kid who is not just looking forward, but he's also looking at the back from where he's come from. And that's where, so it's more about moving together. That's what India does. And that's a very it puts our projects into a very different perspective. There are so many ways in which you deliberate on things, you take views of so many people, and sometimes democracy comes into play, sometimes autocracy comes into play, and somebody directing that yeah aisa hi hona chahiye and all this stuff. But all in all, it's always that we will move ahead together, even if it is going to go a bit slow. So that's how I think we do things in India, and that's the way we are. Or probably when you look at Indian railways and things like that, you can visualize this picture and anybody must have seen it anywhere. A simple platform, everything in displays. You have digital screens, water fountains, people sitting down, people on the benches and things like that. And this is the kind of an experience that you get generally when you're talking. Now, the reason why I show this image is the train that is standing on the platform there is the Palace on Wheels. So you have a huge spectrum of experiences that railways in India can give you. Okay, so you can buy this big journey to a very basic, rudimentary experience that you can get on the trains. Now, beyond this, when I talk about mobility experience, we in India worship things, and we always say that we don't worship the objects, but we actually worship the value that they give us. Yeah, and that's been a very ancient way in which we have looked at everything. Dasara ko jo kuch karte hain log puja, it's all a part of that entire. And this is not just particularly connected to religion. If you see, it's actually across a lot of cultures, across religions in India. We worship that kind of a value. Now, this whole presentation is talking about what India is doing now and how do you really deliver mobility or a travel experience and what can be done next in what we are doing. So particularly these slides were done for an international audience, so a lot of you might know about it, but maybe I'll just go through them anyways. So you might have heard this term called super dense cluster, and it only exists in India and only in Mumbai, and it's almost 14 to 16 people per square meter. So just to make it easy and since you are all architects, so I don't need to explain that, but this becomes very important for people to understand that in 1 square meter you pack in so many people. And that's the kind of capacity with which we are filling these trains. And that's the challenge with which you need the designers need to work with. It's not just inside the train, it's on the platform, with people entering the station, people exiting the station, people needing all kind of service in the station. Everything is kind of extremely exponentially into numbers. Or maybe we never had these ideas of concourses and platforms and things like that. Our just stations were built like just huge spaces. This is the entrance lobby of Ahmedabad railway station. All of you must be aware of this because you've been through the station many times. This is the photograph I took when I was staying in the dormitory here. And it's like, this is like waiting room. This is like you have arrived and you are wanting to find information which train goes where. This is also your screening area. This is also your ticketing area. Everything is over here, and this is probably true for most of the big railway stations. Some have this kind of space, some don't have this kind of space. Or maybe when you look at what we are still doing, and we are still building wooden ships also. This is in Gujarat. I forgot I forgot the name, but there is a small port south of Bhuj where they do these ships. Somebody might have been there also. It's a very interesting place. They still build these wooden ships. Yeah.
Near Mandvi, yeah, in Gujarat.
Mandvi, yes, Mandvi. So very beautiful work that these guys do. One ship takes about a year and a half for them to build, and they're still operational and stuff like that. You could still look at some ancient tools that they're using to build ships. So it's like archaeology experience that you can get over there. Or maybe there is a lot of design instinct, and I'll also explain why this design instinct happens in India. We call it jugaad, but it's actually an instinctive nature to solve problem, and that of course everyone understands why it happens, and maybe there is a certain connotation and context for us as designers to understand why it does it actually happen. Or maybe you are talking about creating transport systems more legible. When you look at a metro system or any kind of a transport system, you need to understand that it's a system that works, and it's a system that has to be explained to people, that how do you use it to the fullest of your knowledge and to go from one place to other place. So imagine in Delhi, this photograph I took early one day morning at 6 o'clock when I landed in Nizamuddin station. And it's like people coming from anywhere across and wanting to read this sign and understand कि अच्छा मैं metro लेके कहाँ से कहाँ जा सकता हूँ. And you can imagine that you are serving a population of 46 million, which possibly is a population of some 6 or 7 countries together from Europe and some of South America. So it's like that kind of a challenge that we have to communicate and make things workable for people, be it architecture, be it signage, be it anything that you're serving on. Or we actually coexist at many places. Like there are these global systems that are in place. Like this is the Airport Express train that is in between Delhi, the New Delhi station and the airport. And these are the Mumbai local trains, which everybody must have experienced. So they're like ruggedly built, and they have their own way in which these are done. Now, a lot of times people take a lot of effort to make things user friendly. We always call that, let's make things user friendly. So you must have seen these kind of machines that are put up and in front of the Mumbai suburban trains. And I think these machines are also started coming at many other suburban areas or railway stations where you can purchase a ticket. Now they have tried to make a lot of effort to give instruction, some sort of an Excel sheet printed at top, given the numbers of notes of coins and things like that. So even a person who is illiterate can identify कि 5 रुपए का coin note डालना है या सिक्का डालना है and all the stuff. But they thought that, okay, putting a kiosk will ease our way of long queues in front of the counter. But it never happened. What was the problem was that the user interface, or the way you are expecting a person to navigate this interface and take a ticket, actually was taking so much time of learning that the queues in front of these kiosks started going much more than a windowed kiosk. And finally, you have that guy who was actually sitting behind the glass actually is coming out and sitting in front of the glass. So he's still doing the same thing. The people just pay him 10 rupees, he buys a ticket and then gives it to them. So in a way, self-service kiosks globally have said that it will ease out the function, but it did not ease out here. So how do we solve this issue? Yeah. Further, we are becoming self-reliant. These trains are coming now. This is the first time a train set was created. I think when we start looking at railway systems, we will have to now also understand this idea of a train set. Now, a train set is created when a train is built from one end to the other end as a group, as a set, which cannot be taken off. And that is not how our railway systems coaches are built. They are built as an independent module, which I can swap from one train to other train. Koi kharab ho gaya to nikal do. That is how our Indian entire train system is built. Now, these train sets have a huge advantage. There are two biggest advantage. They have the fastest turnaround time, and secondly, they are self-powered coaches, which means their acceleration is very high. Because of these two, they can go much faster between two destinations. And we are entering into an era where there are a lot of train sets will come tomorrow. Yeah, maybe a local train, you can call it as a train set. Yeah, these are also self-powered coaches, but these are for more longer distance, 5 hour and things like that. And those train sets just change the way in which you're traveling. If you go globally everywhere, train sets are popular. If you have traveled in Europe, the TGVs, the ICEs, the Virgin trains, all are train sets. Or even the Shinkansens and the Japanese trains, high-speed trains, or even the Chinese high-speed train are all train sets. They have very fast turnaround time, and they are extremely quick and rapid. And now we are also going to become self-reliant in that things are getting done. Beyond the railways, of course, BRTS is one of the things which is changing the face of transport in India. Of course, metros are there, but BRTS have a very viable solution, which of course is not seen in the right light by the politicians, because it's not a very big infrastructure project, but it makes a very big difference. And you might be knowing Abhijit Lokre, who has worked on many BRTS, and he's promoting that law, Professor Lokre. So I think he can tell you much more about how BRTS is helping, but this is how it's happening. And many people might have used this, and this airport suddenly changed the way you looked at airports in India. You know, the whole aspirations went very high. If you even talk of any nowadays, people will say, "Oh, Mumbai ka Terminal 2 jaisa kuch karna hai," and all this stuff. So I have seen photographs of this airport being shared by IRSTC saying we need to aim for doing something like this and stuff. So, and we had also got a chance to work into this for some products that are put up into this, like the kiosks and the TV stations and the furniture and stuff like that. It was very nice to work with the team and the architects, Skidmore, Owen and Merrill, and those guys were involved with this. We are betting high speed in India, the way we got metros. This high speed is again a big experiment that we are doing. And if it all goes well, we will have a train running in 2023. And it's again coming from Japan. These are the trains that will run there. And if the Mumbai-Ahmedabad corridor starts functioning and it is smoothly done, you will see that the high-speed train will explode in India. Suddenly, 4 or 5 more projects are going to be launched, and they will start connecting India from elsewhere. Of course, even at micro level, interventions are happening, like this electric bike, Yulu, which is quite popular in Bangalore as well, and Mumbai and many other areas. And then there are a lot of projects that are happening to change the walkable streets, and there's a whole lot of campaign happening under smart city initiatives to reclaim streets for pedestrians and reduce parking, introduce parking policies and all the stuff. So a lot of my urban planning people would be kind of aware of the way things are happening. This is a photograph from Pune itself, from General Maharaj Road. So in India, there's a lot happening. There is a target of increasing airports. We are connecting regions, like the NCRTC in Delhi is again another experiment that's happening to connect rapidly a big hub, like a big metropolis, to destinations around in a 200-kilometer area. We are reclaiming streets. We are promoting cycling and NMT, and promote a lot of things are happening. And of course, Hyperloop is also talking that we'll do something in India, but it's still time before it really gets implemented and stuff like that. So, but all of these things will keep happening, but we will still need to embrace inclusivity and diversity, which we have as the biggest advantage and the challenge as well. So this is, this guy used to be in my bus every day, and he sells newspapers at the corporation bus stand. And a lot of time I've helped him cut in the bus or get out of the bus and things like that. So we really need to think about all these things. So this particular visualization struck me very prominently, you know, India population density, and you can see all those spikes. Each spike stands for some 2 million population or something like that. And this is quite interesting for us to just look at this and see, oh, the entire north is so populated, and you have these small peaks at Mumbai, Calcutta, or Bangalore, or Chennai, and the coastal regions have peak and all the stuff. But this is not a chart that I'm too much worried about, but this is the picture that I get most worried about. You know, the kind of density in India, and that's the challenge that we have, and that's why mobility becomes a very core area in which we need to make sure that we are easing out things, and a lot of more work is required now across all the fronts, not just planning, architecture, systems, buildings, or whatever it is. On all the fronts we need to work. So just kind of what I did is this was a part of a larger presentation. So I had a poll in between, so I'll not take that poll anywhere. So briefly, I started my work with Ratan Batlua in Mumbai, then did some work in Delhi Metro, then I worked with Philips, then I was with Tata Elxsi for about 11 years, where I created a domain and established it. And now I've started my own design studio in Pune. It's a small start, but I'm kind of making some progress. And my main areas of work are mobility experience, service design, and public interest design. And that's what I aim to do. So few of the projects that I did before, a play pump for UNICEF. This is a pump which pulls out water from a deep bore well, where you can't use a hand pump, and it is mostly installed in schools in areas where you don't have electricity. It's been installed in Africa and MP. It was done as an open source project for UNICEF way back in 2008. Then I actively am involved with Jagriti Yatra. Some of the people might have heard about it or even been a part of the Yatra. So it is a Yatra to inspire young entrepreneurs to understand. So I got onto this Yatra because of my rail fascination, but I was also kind of trying to get into an entrepreneur mode and wanting to start something. So this was a good way for me to get connected. So the yatra actually happens across India. They generally takes selects young aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start something or are already doing something or have attempted to do something, and they go on a 15 days journey all around India, and they are made to go and visit few places where they'll meet some good entrepreneurs doing social and normal for-profit work and everything. So and everything, you almost live on the train. You're given food and everything on the train. You don't live in hotels or whatever it is. And wherever you go and study them. So this my cohort was given the job of studying Akshay Patra as a business model, and how can you take that model and replicate that everywhere else. And so you have to come into train and make a presentation to the rest of the group. So everything actually happens on the train itself, and it's a quite exciting journey. If anybody of you are interested, you should search Jagriti Yatra and see if you can be a part of that thing. And there's also a business plan making competition that happens in Devriya, which is in UP. I'm currently working with them to design their network office, which is going to promote entrepreneurship and help small town people and small village people to set up their own businesses. So anyway, my work started with Delhi way back in 2002 when the Delhi Metro opened, and it actually began the urban transport reforms in a way in India. And that was the first time nobody had done signage there and things. So we got involved into it, and the map that we designed is now still getting done across many areas. And this possibly started framing my way of working and my kind of selection of the projects, that I will always try to work on projects which touches millions. So maybe transport was something that I picked up as my work. And sometimes now your work has become a part of the entire landscape over there. This is outside Chavdi Bazaar. If anybody has gone to that place, the station is almost about 5 floors below the road over there. It's in 2 tunnels, and you put all the signs over there. Now it's a part of the environment there. And because I'm not a graphic designer, but because you are explaining systems through many different tools like maps or via signage or any, I got a chance to design many maps for many systems. So this was Delhi. Then we designed one for Bangalore, which you must have seen at the many stations which has been installed. Then this was done for Chennai. Chennai is the only metro which was connecting to the airport when it started. And it also is connecting to the MRTS, which is also very actively used. So there are these 2 MRTS lines that you see on this here. Then this was the monorail in Mumbai, for which the map was created, displayed at all the stations. Then this was for Kochi. The metro map is there, and also now Kochi is getting a ferry system which goes through the backwaters, which will again be working on the same lines of a rapid transit system like a metro. So this is the place where I experimented a lot in terms of creating a consolidated or a collective effort towards building a passenger experience, and how actually design can help, and what are the areas that we can do. So this was Nagpur, just about done 2-3 years back. Then again, this was a map that was designed for BRTS in Dar es Salaam. If anybody of you are aware of ITDP, so the person working there as a director reached out saying we want to do this. So this is displayed at many locations on all the bus stops in Dar es Salaam BRTS. And yes, of course, the current work that I'm doing is the map or the entire wayfinding signage, branding, station furniture, art, advertising, and museum guidelines for the Mumbai Metro. So that project is getting over right now, so within next month. So this is the map of Mumbai. So when the metros will start functioning, it will change the entire face of the way the metro will function. And in addition to this, I do a lot of backpack rail tours. I think briefly mentioned it to Nitra that day that this is one of the tours that I did. So And one of the reason I travel here is just to understand how things change from one region to other region, how stations differ from one place to other place, what is the interaction between the city and the station. uh, you can very easily get down at a station and know that whether the station came first or the city came first, and things like that. So there are a lot of these very exciting things, the way food changes, the way retail changes, the way station mannerism changes, the way cleanliness of station changes. So there are a lot of stuff that you can observe when you kind of travel. And I generally do these backpack travels across, so kind of sleeping on platforms and dormitories and across the stations everywhere. So far I've worked across many areas in India, including airports and all the stuff. So these are the signs. So the Bangalore signs you must have seen. So top left one, the right one is the guideline for Chennai, then lower one is the monorail and the Bangalore metro. Then we have standardized the signage for all airports across India. So the new signs have already started installing at many locations. So this is the Chennai airport that you are seeing. Now this is the Kochi Metro project, which really changed the way I was trying to propose. So earlier we were only saying that we'll do signage, and that was what the entire system was open when they said that, okay, we want some designers to work on it. But with Kochi, I think I kind of put a not just work on the signage, but it is important that you tie the whole system to the perspective of the user and why he is traveling. And then the system can have a lot of insights and it can be designed around them very well. So we propose then that we'll set passenger-centric experience guidelines across the system. So be it trains, be it stations, be it information, be it signage, be it communication, all the systems. So and the client agreed, and we got a chance to work on the project. So here we actually got a chance to work from the trains, like setting the color schemes of the trains. And of course, you can't do drastic changes in the train because they come with very high level safety issues. You can't suddenly change a color scheme, or you can change a color scheme, but you can't change a product or a material because it has to go through long testing and validity and all the stuff. But there are superficial changes, feature changes that you can do and to make it customized. So we got involved into the train, the front of the train, or the interiors of the train, to we design the tickets for them. So how can the QR code be much more ticket be simplified for a person to use? So don't push a lot of operational information onto the ticket, which the person has a lot of tough time to read. That operational information can be gotten by the ticket checker, who can just scan it on his phone or a device he's been given and get all the information. So why are you unnecessarily increasing the time of printing of the ticket as well? So you sometimes go to that level and explain them that why it can help, or maybe come out with a standard graphic identity, or we introduce them the thought that the metro only is not going to solve your problem. You have, unless and until you talk to all the transport systems together and start integrating them and put a single point of face to them, that this is the Metro Transport Authority of Kochi and we are serving you, then people will increase your faith. And actually that happened. So we introduced this multiple branding to them. And I think after the metro opened in 2016 end, uh, I think 2 years ago or 1 year ago, the bus operators, which were all private operators, got together, formed two cooperatives, and came into Kochi Metro's office and saying, "Sir, can you advise how can we improve our services? And we want to realign our network around the metro." Now that was a huge success that they could get in a state like Kerala, which has a lot of strong kind of a body of cooperatives and the free things. uh, they could kind of come together and say that there's an advantage in coming together and serving the passenger in one go. So that was really advantageous, and it worked. It is quite working well. Right now even rickshaws are branded with Kochi Metro logo to take passengers from the station in the last mile connectivity, and all the stuff is happening now there. So from there, we also designed the app for them, how the app should be integrated, what are the features that the app should do. And then we also designed machines for them. So even a lot of times our tenders are very, they can't define what you want. Design cannot be defined in a tender in terms of words. So then you have to, as a part of sitting in front next to the client saying that, okay, this is not what we actually want. Maybe we should push the limit and push the bracket slightly more ahead and say, okay, isko aur kuch karke dekhte hain. And that's how kind of you can get certain good design implemented. And also sometimes you get advantages because a lot of these projects that happen, they generally don't try to innovate or they don't try to change what they're doing, because change becomes a very big problem for them, because they have to get it tested. They are not conducive to ordering that well, and there are so many things. The ecosystem has not been filled, the staff is not trained. All of those challenges are so high that the moment you tell them that hum log kuch naya karte hain, it will be shot down in the first go. So you have to work with them continuously कि sir इसमें खर्चा भी कम आएगा. I can assure you that this will be easier to produce, faster to make, and things like that. So you have to kind of convince them to kind of do their changes in a lot of ways. And then, of course, the station interiors were done. We introduced the themes of arts across all the stations that got artists involved across Chennai, Cochin to get their art implemented. And we presented this across in a competition and we got a award on it, an international award. And that actually convinced me that, yes, there is a holistic approach that needs to be thought through on when we are designing a mobility system. And that's where, and then I started pursuing it more and kind of looked at that there has to be an integrated way in which you look at all these projects. You should not look at them as the I'm building an architecture building or I'm just doing a planning so that the traffic is eased out properly. But it has to be seen from multiple angles. And that's the main challenge of all these projects. After working on so many things, and I saw that you should be looking at an integrated experience, be it physical, be it digital, and whatever it is. So the how do you really deliver better mobility experience? So I kind of looked at and put out some 9 principles, and these principles are basically they may not look like rocket science, but I've just kind of compiled, which becomes a very easy way for us to look at our project of how we can deliver things. So what are those 9 principles? First is like really need to empathize with the user, and what is the context in is it traveling, why is he traveling. So I have a couple of slides added after this to explain two or couple of principles on this. Then the contextualized part of it. So what I do in Bangalore may not be the same that I do in Mumbai. So how is that context playing a part? And that context is not just about the city, even the kind of people who come there. Maybe there's a station where a lot of farmers are coming because has a lot of farmers around it. The entire services of the station could possibly change. The user journeys are important, right from the time they start their journey to the time they complete their journey into the station and get into the train or get out of the train and come use your station and all this things. So the whole journey becomes very important for you to explain what is to be done across many areas. And of course, it's high time that everything needs to be integrated and collaborated. And you can't think in isolations because there are connections between them. And those connections generally get dropped out because there is no central team which looks at all these connections. And a lot of times, so they just create a brand, put 2 3 colors, and this is the typeface and things like that. That's my brand identity, but that's not the brand. But actually, your service is your brand. How did you make that person feel when he entered the station? Was he able to find the right place? Was he able to take a rest properly? Did he get a good quality of coffee? Yeah, or was he able to make a phone call properly? Did he get a good network connection in the station? All those things actually format a kind of a service, and that actually is going to build your brand. Okay, I'm not an expert person from HR or team development, but even the people who are delivering the service need to be trained and developed. And I think there is no question about it. You need to go digital in whatever manner. If tomorrow you want to put counters on the entrances saying, yeah, from today onwards, I'm capturing data of how many people are entering. I'm capturing survey of whether people are happy with this particular toilet or whether people are not happy with whatever it is, capture this or even use digital tools to do things as much as possible. Another thing is discipline implementation. Now, this must be very simple way to say, but kind of set guidelines, set protocols, set SOPs that this is how things have to be done. Because it's not that you can build things, you might have visualized it during the architecture design or maybe infrastructure design or maybe engineering design that this is how it is going to work. But again, implementing it over a period of time is extremely important in a certain discipline manner. And again, promotion is extremely important. Even a station which is like a Bangalore metro station or any metro station or any station for that matter, it has to promote itself. You can't just take it for granted that it is, yeah, it is great and then we have built it and people will know what they're doing. You have to promote it because it is going to be helping the people to know that these are the services that are happening. This is how my station will be helpful for me. If I go there early, I have a lounge to take rest. If I'm going there late, I have a counter on which I can get a quick help, and there is a porter who can rush with my bag to the platform, and then I can go. Or maybe there is a cab available in the front which is an electric cab, and he can drop me. Or maybe my old grandmother needs some help. These have to be promoted. You can't just say that people will find them out when they are needed. And also, there is a very different connotation when you promote. If you promote something, you are bound to create that image. And that's what a lot of these services, particularly from the government sector, don't do. Because the moment you start promoting and you get bind, then you have to deliver it. If you don't promote, then you're not talking about it. And that's how a lot of these services don't get. And most of the private entities, if you'll see, promote themselves, and they have to strive to make sure that it gets done. So if you look at the way you kind of the empathize or empathy map that you want to create or understand the user journeys, so we should look at not number of people who came in a train, how many people came on a weekend, what is the peak hour, when are the most trains coming, which are the most trains starting from here, and things like that. But beyond that, there is a second layer to it. So there are students who are traveling, there are tourists who are traveling, there are women who are traveling. And as architects, I should not stress on this. The moment you wear their caps or wear their shoes, I would say, you suddenly see things in a very different way. Yeah. And we have been trained to look at it from the physically challenged people. Like I was designing a project in Delhi, and at that time, they called me and said, "Humko signage karna hai," and all stuff. And I was made to sit on the wheelchair, and I navigated the entire station. And the moment you sit on a wheelchair and you take that journey, you suddenly notice things go wrong. And those are the realizations with which our training can help us to look at it from all these people's perspective. Yeah. And then see how we can support the design and how can we can make it much better. Or maybe I also practice this particular discipline of service design, and this is the service design framework that I've designed, that any service that you deliver, now you can actually use this framework to anything. For example, you can apply it to a product like a mobile phone, or to a chaiwala, to a hospital, to a aircraft service, or to a train service. Yeah. So it'll always have an environment in which it serves. It'll always have some sort of a product or service that people are ready to pay for. Okay. And it is always serving a certain opportunity. There is already the persona mapping, which was the previous one, which I said that there's always an idea of how many people are there and what kind of people are coming over here. And they change from place to place. Or if on extreme left on my side point, there is a service touch point. So there are a lot of touch points where the people interact with the system. That's the front face. And that tells you that there's a back end of the system also, which people don't get to know. So for example, if you're looking at airline service, so you only get to choose maybe a drink or a cake or maybe a box of nuts or whatever it is. But at the back, there's a lot of service system that ensures that all this thing is stocked, and they have a lot of data that is backing, saying that, okay, a mango drink sells faster, so next time or more than a jaljeera, so let us pack in more mango drinks in this season. But when you're talking of a summer season, a jaljeera sells more, and all this thing is done at the back end. And all the thing needs to be done in these kind of services also. And of course, there are stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people who are actually getting benefited, in terms of not the people who are using the system, but the people who are earning from the system. Even a sweeper who earns his salary by cleaning the stations, or a chai wala who is selling chai at the station stall, he is a stakeholder in keeping the station probably clean, delivering the service, and how are you packaging that entire thing for a station. And then you look at the user journey of how these users are traveling, and then all these time things come to a value proposition. Yeah. So all of you must have traveled on Indigo. Now you can actually use this structure map on Indigo, and you can actually find out what they do in each of these areas, which actually has come down to a certain value proposition. And this is a structure that I've designed to help companies. So I've worked with a lot of companies to come out with their products and services and help them to come out to the market and deliver a certain kind of experience to their customers. So this is the service design framework, and I use this in the mobility experience design as well. So as you see, when you look at a station project, there are so many things that you're doing. And these are randomly put, okay. There is architecture design, there's a town planning, there's a property development, there is a projects team who's only concerned about how do I get things done. There is a revenue management, there's a transport oriented development, somebody is procuring things, somebody has to ensure that the fare collection is happening because that's going to get our overhead charges or usage charges. There is a security to control this. When I say traction, there's the electric traction and all the services and the systems that make that running. And there is a finance that has to be managed. There's so many things, all of these, and actually all of these are making the railway system. It's not just the fare system, or it's not just the project, or it's not an infrastructure project. It's and every things that people have to kind of think all across, and they have to sit across and understand. For example, a train stopping at a certain location, and if you have not provided facilities for that, for example, in metros, I could say that architects designed the station, and there is a different company which is designing the rolling stock. Now the train is designed in a certain way, and there are only two doors, which are the doors immediately after the cab, the driver's cab, which are provided for a wheelchair passenger to come inside. Okay, now why it is provided there? Because if that passenger needs more time, if it is he is going to take more time, or he is a bit slow, he has mobility difficulty, somebody is assisting him. So there is a button outside the train which he presses. So he is requesting for a slightly longer time. And then the driver gets to know, and he waits for that person to get inside. Rest of the doors can get locked. Okay, all that the train system understands, but the architecture does not know what is happening on the train. Now, for all these people, when the station furniture is planned, maybe you're putting seatings or whatever it is, you put seats with looking at where the locations are, where I'm not obstructing the circulation and stuff like that. But you don't provide seats in front of this particular place where this accessible door is there, where you expect people with reduced mobility, maybe there's a seat provided there. Now, this coordination somebody needs to do, and that is ideally should be done at the system level who own the system, but sometimes they are also kind of isolated into multiple projects team, finance team, ticketing team. I'll tell you a very interesting insight. I was trying to work on the signage for the railway stations, and I surveyed 4 stations: Bhopal, Gorakhpur, Old Delhi railway station, and Jaipur. And over 6-7 days, I visited all these 4 stations and came back. You know, one of the very interesting insight that I got, and I was surprised with that insight, saying that सर वो साइनेज जिसमें लाइट लगता है ना, वो इलेक्ट्रिकल के डिपार्टमेंट के अंडर आता है, और वो साइनेज जिसमें लाइट नहीं लगता है ना, वो मैकेनिकल के अंडर आता है. Okay, now that's like I was saying, okay, chalo, theek hai. Matlab, this is how you guys are working. So how could I get these things together? And that's how the operational management reflects onto the front of the customer, which actually sometimes is not what the customer is looking at the system at. So particularly in my mobility projects, there is a need to shift focus from infrastructure to service delivery. That is something that we need to very actively do. Experience design is a continuous activity. You can't do it on one day and then saying I've done everything and it is going to continue. You have to keep on top of it continuously. There has to be a team which is responsible for managing the experience of people on the station day in and day out continuously. Operations need more customer focus than construction phase. So what happens is when you are constructing the systems like stations, or the operations teams are lying idle. You know, they are not so much involved into it. They only come at the end when the handover happens. And during the handover, if you have seen the handover of the system, they take a lot of time, because then the operations will come up with the list. Humko ye chahiye, ye nahi diya, and then there's an audit. Okay, and the construction phase starts getting delayed because they could not provide, because it was all an infrastructure driven kind of a thought process. And I've seen things happening like this. So the operations teams need to come into the picture much ahead of time during the construction phase. And I think when I say design should be more integrated, I don't mean design as in the product design or something like that. Even architecture design is a part of product design. It's thinking about what the system needs to deliver at the end around a particular context. Why are we? What is the purpose by which we are for which we are building? And that thinking should be brought into this. And it's a continuous thing. That's why I'm saying design needs to be more integrated. So I always say, let us set up a dedicated team, design team, which will work in a very integrated way with the operators who are actually going to work on the system tomorrow. Now, there was another proposition that I made through this presentation, but I'll just quickly go through this, that what level design adds value. And this was just a thought process, and I'll just go through quickly on this. So if you have seen Maslow's pyramid, we had these basic three things, food, shelter, and clothing. And now if you've seen in last 2-3 years, connectivity, mobility, and healthcare are suddenly got added into this, and you cannot live without it now anymore. And that's how this is like the basic physiological needs that we are kind of working with. And when you look at any vision that is transcending into reaching all the people, and why I've put mobility as a green, because we're talking about mobility here. So that vision gets converted to a policy, then it can convert it into an ecosystem, and then it creates products and services that can happen. And you can design intervention can happen at the vision level, you can do it at the policy level, you can do it at the ecosystem level, or you can create products and services. So a lot of product design actually works in this lower areas. Okay. When you talk about river rejuvenation or city planning, I would suggest that architects and planners have gone to the level of policy and vision. So architecture has got that status where it has now been getting a chance to influence the policy and vision. Yeah, but from our side, when we look at design, where we're talking about products, services, systems, and things like that, it still has not got into the level where it could influence the vision and the policy. Maybe it will take some more time. So when I'm looking at I will bring the chart again. So when we are looking at India particularly, how does this chart change and what is exactly happening? So in India, maybe the chart looks like this. It does not become a triangular pyramid. It's kind of unending on the sides. And there are these small pyramids that happen within it, because our services are so diverse, the country is so diverse that there are so many small pyramids also happen within this entire thing. So let's look at how can the vision be put up. So let's look at the vision is saying that let's reduce pollution. Let us reduce road accidents. That's the visionary statement. I want to reduce road accidents. I want to create walkable cities, or I want to reduce congestion. And these are like the vision that we want to set. Now, out of that, by the time that vision gets through the policy and ecosystem, your main aim is to make sure that it reaches all the people at the bottom. Yeah, and it takes time. There's a lot of time that it takes. But what happens is, by the time this vision comes to reality, there are a lot of challenges. People have not remained there. People have come up. And how do you see that happening? You can see that happening with this frugal innovation. And that's what we call as jugaad. People start taking whatever that is happening, because they are facing with a problem, and they are not going to wait for that vision to get translated into policy. And electric three-wheelers are a classic example of this. Now, electric three-wheelers started coming into cities like Ahmedabad, Delhi, or Indore, or Bhopal, like this, without even there was a policy in place. And they had a beautiful ecosystem, a guy who delivers battery to them and things like that. Now, all that thing was run by people who created their own tools. They never waited for the policy to come to them. But yes, as designers, as architects, or anybody who is involved into the design should be aware that there is a certain way in which we can give them tools and they can further develop things on their own. And software technology has proven this. Now, for example, tools have become kind of democratized. Anybody can download an animation application and create a beautiful animation. Or free SketchUp available to a certain extent can help a simple interior designer to do his work without any much hassles, and he can deliver his work. Now, the quality and things are not what we are debating, but at least he can earn his living by using that tool. He doesn't have to pay, and he doesn't have to do a lot of stuff. Yeah. So these tools are actually becoming handy. So when you do design intervention, so what are the levels in which you're doing? Are you influencing the vision? Are you influencing to promote the policy? Are you working at the influencing of ecosystems and create products and systems? Now you go down. When you've created products and systems, you are actually delivering a ready product in hand. You too can take 2 levels down. One level is you build platforms and build capacity. So you train people how they can build the products. And last is you make tools. Like you give them tools and they will build it themselves. And this is how design intervention can keep happening. People can work at any level. So I had done this chart to ask the global audience of where they are working, and I just wanted to know which is the maximum level. And I got some responses that most of the people were working at the L3 level. Uh, Very few said that they are working on building platforms and things, but that was more on the software side of things. But it was rare. Very rarely people said that we are at L1 and L2 and things like that. So this was only to get a sense of where people are working. So that's how I've been seeing things. And for the next world, basically, I have been publishing a lot. So there's an article that I published in the Springer Journal about how what is the uh, kind of an impact on your stress, daily stress of by using public transport, and how stress free you are. What can you do in that time? How does it help and things like that? So I published an article and it got selected for the Springer Journal. So my whole idea was that I used to spend around 135 minutes every day in my travel, and that's a good amount of time in a day, isn't it? Now what did I do in that time and how it helped me? So it helped me read, it helped me connect with my friends, it helped reduce my stress, it helped me look at my city in a different way. I could see, if I was driving, then I am focusing on not to hit people who are coming on the road, but if I'm in the bus, I can do a lot of stuff. So I kind of wrote this article. It is interesting. And then also I kind of when I was coming out of my company and I was on a sabbatical, I thought "Kuch karna chahiye." So I went up to the PMPML team here in the MD and told them that, sir, आपको पैसा नहीं है, मुझे मालूम है, you just tell me, you give me a small space, I will start doing solving problems for you, you let me know what problems you have. And then they said, okay, can you go to this particular bus stand and do some work, maybe beautify, make it better for people to look at. So I've been working with them for last 10 years to make incremental changes here and there, like changing the boards and stuff like that. So I went to the bus stop and understood that the alignment of buses needed. I aligned it as per the route travels. I did a research and found out that people never were aware that there are more than 45 routes going from that. So the information was not given properly. So I had kind of created this entire thing, and this was all pro bono work that I did in 2019 end to explain how buses can be used. How do you find out how the network, and this is designed as an expandable and a modular system which can go on to the independent bus stops also. So this was implemented. We even tried doing a QR code based structure where if you want to know all the stops on the bus route of 282, of course the signs are not capable of showing all those, so you just scan it and then you download the PDF file on your phone, and anybody with a very simple phone having a QR code reader camera can download that. So we kind of tested, piloted that and things like that. So I've been doing work like this across multiple areas. I also started doing work in railways design. I'm trying to set up a railways design center where the work will not be on the trains, but or not just on the trains, but the whole understanding of improving the experience of the journey. Yeah, because I always believe that people consume trips, and if you are consuming the trip, then you should make that it worth it, the kind of money that they're paying for it. So uh, I also am a firm believer that government needs design more than anybody else. So though it's a very tough area to work with, it's high challenges. It's not like any other private client, but how can we deliver? That's a exercise that we need to do. And of course, I have my hobbies about railway modeling and stuff. So I've designed a small layout in Pune, which is open. If anybody of you come to Pune and are going towards Mahabaleshwar, you can see it, that layout. I've tried to show how integrated transport works. There are 3 metro stations there. There's a big terminus that I've designed, which has a high-speed train, a metro, and all the stuff and things like that. So kind of I had a fun when I was in my sabbatical to design these and even build models myself. So I had a good time at that point. So that's like the work that I've been doing. And I got connected to Sunil and he said that we are working on the station, and then it got me excited, saying, "Are we can do some work together." And he said, so let's do a presentation. And I thought I'll share some of my thoughts that I have. it'll be good to hear more from you what work you are doing, and it'll be interesting to work with you guys also. So I hope you, if you have any questions and things, I'll be open to answer and look forward to work with you.